I think I hung up on you or something like
Yes,
that.
you did.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Hey, Glenn.
Hi. Is that Danny?
It's me. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. That's Danny.
Yes.
Yeah.
What else we got here?
It's just us three for now. I think there might be two other people who might call in.
Okay.
They're given the time, so whenever they, I guess, have a second to call in, they'll call in, you know.
Yeah.
Told them 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Glenn, I'm finding like I'm coming across some stuff that I'm finding interesting. Like I've been looking into these guys, reading a book on Lewis and Clark.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when you look at like natives. Like
Natives are the scouts.
yeah.
And and then they used Sacagawea to guide guide them through the territory. That's why you have scouts. They're the first ones in. What they do is lay the directions in symbolism on the ground and don't tell anybody except the person who's going to be the guide. The person who's going to be the guide is going to be the one who pretends they're leading the way in unknown, unplotted territory.
Right. Is that how they communicated? They had like some type of symbolic language, right? Because if you're coming from a different country, speaking different tongues, they were also able to talk to each other and figure out what's, you know.
They all could read the signs.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's I noticed it was embedded in their religions, like how to treat, or like there's one with the they call them Osages, or I think they were called Mandan.
Well, if you look at mathematics, it's the same thing. They give you a sign. Plus, minus, divide by, you know.
Yeah.
All of those signs in algebra and mathematics are there to guide the person forward by somebody who's been there before.
Right.
The same thing exists in language. It's called silly balls.
Yeah.
So yeah, I seen how like these guys basically, and they say that like it's just like it was like universal symbols that they used.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing I think around the world. Everywhere.
And the media knows it, but they pretend they don't, and they laugh at people who say it exists.
Right. That's exactly.
And accuse them of being crazy.
Yeah. That keeps people from looking in that direction. You know?
And I was thinking of like the technology, like that they were using, because they use these natives. Because I've been looking at the other natives. They call them Taino. These were the ones in the Caribbean. They're like they have different sects called Arawak and Carib and
Caribs. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was looking at the ones that were in before it was called Haiti, and some sided with Columbus, and some rebelled. But I think it was a game they were all playing.
It always is. It's theater produced by the ones in the middle, the media, Medes.
Yeah.
The word Medes is the code word seed.
Yeah.
They seed the ground, and they expect you to follow their instructions on development. And then if you start looking for yourself, though, you sometimes find pumpkins growing out of acorns.
So yeah, they had this advanced technology. I think biowarfare, because they say, oh, the natives died because of diseases, but I think that's like they probably like set it all up up, so they would die from these diseases when they came.
Absolutely.
Like, only a computer could do something like that. That's so, like, thinking ahead of the game, you know? Maybe that's what they were doing when they, had all diseases in Europe. They were kind of like, because they know how the human body works, like it becomes almost like immune to certain diseases, but ones that aren't exposed are like.
Well, we talked before about maturity and immaturity, and the fact that one cannot be mature without having lived the experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a good example of that last week with Michael, and I hope he gets on because I want to tell him that in fact he made a statement which is an absolute lie. I knew it was a lie then, but I wanted to do my job, which is to observe, analyze, and conclude rather than jump to his point of view based upon his immaturity. He made a statement that there were never any hermaphrodites in the human race. And I took his statement and I went to a quote-unquote 55-year-old woman researcher. And I said, if I told you that no such thing as a hermaphrodite exists in the human race except through genetic engineering, what would you say? She said, I'd say you're crazy because the evidence is overwhelming that there is in all species a beginning with woman that then divides and produces genders. So I said, prove it. Someone told you that no such thing existed, what would you say? She said, well, I would refer you to a guy by the name of Saint Hilaire, which sounds a little bit like Hillary. And the fact that he lied a little bit like Hillary, because whenever she feels she needs to take the lead in something, like she did with her story about landing in Iraq with bullets flying all around or whatever. Saint Hilaire did not like the concept of hermaphrodites. It did not fit well with religious belief. It did not fit well with medical practitioners. And therefore, he and other people at the time decided they would change the definition of hermaphrodite. And by changing the definition of hermaphrodite to something that wasn't possible, they then said, ha, there are no such things, hermaphrodites in human beings. So for those of you who care to go a little further than the first thing one reads put out by the system, there was a site called commonplace.org. Common with a hyphen place.org. Volume 8, number 2, January 2008. Elizabeth Rees, R-E-I-S, completing a book titled Bodies in Doubt, An American History of Intersex, to be published by Johns Hopkins University Press. He is an associate professor of women's and gender studies history at the University of Oregon. So I leave that with you, and you can tell Michael that when he grows up, he'll learn not to accept something just because he saw it once the mainstream press. And in there, he'll see that it's not just humans, but all advanced, highest class of animals. Picture of an orangutan as well. In his account of a hermaphrodite orangutan, Richard Harlan made the point that a perfect set of male and female organs could be found in even the highest class of animals, as in monkeys. Also described a person living in Lisbon whose genitals united both sexes in apparently great perfection. Illustrations from Richard Harton, MD, description of a hermaphrodite orangutan lately living in Philadelphia, published in 1827, courtesy of the New York Academy of Medicine Library. One thing that you should never try to do when it comes to medicine is lie to a nurse. Especially not the director of nursing, or to any doctor who's got access to the medical library, which is different from the library intended for us common folk. So I just thought I'd let you know that before Michael comes on, if he dares come on.
Yeah, my father, with medicine, I can never have a conversation with him, Glenn, about medicine, because it's just impossible, because he used to think he used to swear he knew everything about medicine. And, he probably did know a lot. But, so I would never even talk about it.
I think, is he on? Is that you? Mike, are you on now? Someone just came in from South California.
Yeah, it's me, Mike.
You just got on?
Did you hear me, Michael?
Yeah. Oh, hey, Glenn. How are you?
I'm fine. I was just talking about you.
About me?
I was talking about the immaturity of young people who believe things they read and make then statements as if they were true, such as you did last week. And
what did I do?
Saying that I did not want to respond because I'm trained not to respond to things like that, but rather to go forward and get the evidence and then present it, which is something that it is hard for young people to do. And I'm not blaming you in particular, because I used to do the same thing when I was 30 years old. I thought I knew everything. I found out along the way, on my way to 55, that I didn't really know everything.
Are you talking about the post about boars?
We're talking about the hermaphrodite not being in the human species, which is a lie that was fabricated in the 1800s, late 1700s and 1800s, by the medical profession and a guy by the name of Saint Hilaire. Saint Hilaire was a professional liar who fabricated stories. One of the problems the medical profession had and the religious people had was to explain hermaphrodites in human beings. So Saint Hilaire provided the answer by simply changing the definition of what was a hermaphrodite. And then he could escape saying that the people that the doctors were looking at were in fact true hermaphrodites by changing the definition. And I gave the link you can look at, because what I did is I said if a 30-year-old believes the first thing he reads and doesn't bother checking, I'm going to see if that kind of thing changes in one's life. So I went to a 55-year-old nurse, and I repeated the statement that you had made. And I said, what would you say if you heard that? And her response was, that's crazy. Every single species, down to the lowest and the highest, starts off as a woman and develops over time. I said, prove it. She went to the internet and sent me a fax on an article, and there's much more than just this article, but I thought this would be a good beginning for you to read. It's a place called Common Place, with a hyphen between common and place. www.common-place.org, Volume 8, Number 2, January 2008. Elizabeth Reese is completing a book titled Bodies in Doubt, An American History of Intersexes, to be published by Johns Hopkins University Press. She is an associate professor of women's and gender studies and history at the University of Oregon. Now, I'm not going to go through teaching a lesson here. I just want to make the point. Now, when I was young, I thought I knew everything. Now I'm 69, I think I know most things. I had to back down a little bit along the way. And I know most things because a lot of things I know I don't remember. But they're there inside of me. Like the history of a deciduous tree resides in a coniferous beginning. A pine begat an oak tree. A spine begat a human. Therefore, the DNA in there contains all of the information I will ever need to make decisions. But only if I understand that it has been played with, that the medulla that I had as the in-between brain or interbrain has been changed from its origin of looking for truth rather than only looking for safety. Safety is a good thing to look for, but it should not be the priority. It should only follow in line after truth.
Now, was that the thought process of Neanderthal?
I beg your pardon?
Was that the thought process of what Neanderthals were? Safety and unsafe? And not
no, it's what they put into Cro-Magnon and Roma. They don't dare change themselves any more than religious people want to change themselves. You are to take the word religion and realize there is no L.
Region.
And that their goal is to create a perfect slave called 10 or I-O. I-O, I-O, it's off to work we go. If you remove those three letters from the word religion, what have you got left?
Rego? I-O and L?
R-E-I-G-N.
Oh, region. What?
Reign.
Oh.
As in royals, reign.
Reign. Pull the reins on the reindeer.
If you want to find the truth about anything medical, go to the medical library, pretend you're a doctor, and get access to their books, which are different from our books. And I would suggest to you that if you wanted to find anything about anything, go to the books that belong to that profession.
Yeah.
And you will find books that have different stories than the ones that are published, whether they're archaeologists or mathematicians or any topic whatsoever. In order to be published for the general population, they have to meet certain criteria. Truth is not among the criteria the books have to meet.
Yeah, I have access to that stuff, those medical books. I used to look at them.
You go look up hermaphrodites. This fax that was sent to me has 11 pages, but there are other documents as well. My point is not to go into an argument here. My point is to explain to you that over time, evidence that is incontroversial comes your way.
Mm-hmm.
It will happen to you on each topic 3 times within your life. And by the third time, if you haven't figured it out, your brain doesn't function. If by the third time you've figured it out, you've demonstrated signs of being a normal human being. A normal human being learns things over time. That's why it's the 4th dimension.
Yeah.
You cannot get all of the information crammed into 20 or 30 years. You can't even get it all crammed into one lifetime. Therefore, you must be reanimated a number of times over the millennia in order to acquire some information about everything.
Glenn, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Michael. Is it Michael or is it Neil? Which one am I dealing with today?
Michael.
Michael.
Well, my question is, first it refers to the comment you made about the developmental cycles of organisms. That's true that many organisms do, in fact, pertain to the gender of a female until they are influenced with testosterone and then they turn into a male. But regardless of that, what I wanted to say was there aren't that many species, at least today in existence, that are true hermaphrodites, as in after they are born.
Michael. Read the stuff on it by the experts. Don't keep repeating a lie because it's convenient to your story. That's my point today.
How do you define a true hermaphrodite?
You don't add definitions to prevent the person from being called a hermaphrodite. Hermaphrodites don't need to be functioning in both genders until If the only male of a clan dies, Michael, a female among the clan will convert to a male so that the species can continue to live. Read the background information on all of that.
Well, what
you don't have to have pleasure from both sets of organs in order to be a true hermaphrodite. You have to have the equipment, and it can be turned on by recessive genes at any single time it's required.
Turned on remotely?
It can also be done remotely today because genetic engineers who operate in laboratories are telling you in the letters they write as 31st, 32nd degree Masons, they finalize each letter by adding, so mote it be. Mote is not complete. It's missing its first two letters. R-E, second time around. So remote it be. And therefore, the super ego that deals as the referee between your id and your ego is not yours anymore. It can be communicated as information to you. The key word is raft in French. Radeau is the pronunciation of a raft in French. Therefore, their equipment for communicating is a radio. And you hear radio all the time as you drive around, as you walk into places, as you are trying to get peace in the country. Somebody's brought a portable radio they turn on. I have a 72-year-old man that cannot go to sleep at night without the radio playing by his bedside and the light on in the room.
Well, what you just mentioned to me is more reasonable than what I thought you meant by true hermaphrodites.
Well, that's because I took the time to ask the question of the person that was old enough to know.
Well, what I
if
meant
I want to know how to play hockey, I don't need to ask a 65-year-old. But if I want to know about the things that control my life, medicine, mathematics, geography, geometry, archaeology, I know it's not available to the average person on the street. Therefore, I ask the question, but not just from one person. I need evidence from many people that this kind of stuff is a possibility. Not even a probability. As long as it's a possibility, then I have to work on the other side. How can they be doing it? And they are doing it. The earth doesn't have the word ear in it for nothing. It's a listening device. And if you know anything at all about electronics, you know that if you have a microphone, you also own a speaker. It's the same technology in reverse.
Yep.
So therefore, if we live on a planet that is an ear, it would be unimaginable that the ear would only only be used in one direction. Therefore, why do Buddhists ask you to go to a awakened state of sleep?
Same.
So that you can be programmed without interference. That's what meditation is.
It has medi in it too, so you got to go through some priest or middleman. That's the clue I see, man. That tells me is stay away from that stuff.
When I was young, I used to say to a person who had a problem, "Did you hear the story of so and so? That person had a similar problem to yours." That may not be a very good idea until you check out the person's story. You may not want to give that person as an example, because the person's story may be exactly what you say it is. But if it ends up in tragedy, if it ends up proving the person loses all appeals to reason, then what you're doing is discouraging a person who has similar problems from trying to solve the problem. And discouraging a person who has a problem from trying to find a solution is not the best thing to do. It really works for the opposition. But you cannot be blamed for doing that when you're 20, 30, even 40 years old. Their books tell you life begins at 40. That's because by 40, you joined Masonry at 20, and you paid them for degrees until you're 40. But life doesn't begin for a person on the day he's born. The person has to grow up first. He has to have a coming out party. Like he's got to be through his primary and secondary schooling, at least. So I wouldn't count a person to really be a person until they're 55. It's only because you need to be faced with the three different opinions, three versions of the same story. And it doesn't happen on your schedule. It happens on creation's schedule.
Why is it 3?
3 strikes you're out is the allegory. They created a symbolic game which they call Al-Qaeda ball.
Baseball.
Al-Qaeda is the word base in Arabic. So, you know how the game is played when you see their allegory.
Glenn, how many times do you think... how many times do you think
3 is a 3-sided pyramid.
The lozenge.
Incomplete pyramid.
Diamond.
In fact, before you can build a true pyramid, you have to dig a hole so that you can start at a point and come out from the ground to the level of the ground with a square. And then you build a 4-sided pyramid going up. It's no different with a tree. trees.
Or a tooth.
I beg your pardon?
I said, or a tooth.
Or a tooth, yes. Trees, and I see it every day because I live in the bush. On the farm, I walk around and I understand why the coniferous trees are in one place and the deciduous trees are in another. They need the protection of the pine tree in order to grow the coniferous trees behind it. So you know where the front really is, even though there's no sign around. But you have to grasp that concept that a tree begins in the ground, comes up to a point where the roots meet at the base of the trunk, and then expands again from that point. Pyramids do the same thing. On one side, you have religion. On the other side, you have military. Those are the knights of old. They used to be the same person. They got divided into two groups because the priests who liked to work with books didn't like to have blood on their tunics. And the ones who liked to have blood flying all over didn't want to hang around a library. So they split the task in two. And what they created was the other two sides. One side is business, so that it can create and manufacture those items that you need in order to survive and prosper and amuse yourself. Each business of the large variety is a two-faced operation. It's something that produces a consumer product in a time other than war, but it's designed to switch around quickly and produce war material when that becomes necessary. On the other side of them is the politician, the political world, that basically writes all the regulations, because they learn things every day and therefore have to write a new rule in order to take that into consideration. So four sides, one would say, leads up to a point, and you ask yourself the question, where's the capstone? Why does the pyramid at Giza not have a capstone? Why is it accompanied by two smaller pyramids and a whole bunch of broken down step pyramids? Because it's the process. But the process is not complete until the capstone is laid. But the capstone is in transit. It's in transition. It's being made. Who's making it? Well, there's a lioness statue next to the pyramid. It's called a sphinx. And between its paws, there's a path leading underground. That's the lab. And the people who are involved in making that were considered second-class citizens in the four sides of the pyramid. Religion, in politics, in business, and in the military, females were considered to be less than human. So they operate in the background. They do the dirty work. They wash the toilets. They wash the floors. Do the work of clerks. Do the archiving. But in the end, they know everything. Pyramid doesn't. that's what you have today. Have the women who know everything called women. Because nobody checks on, is this all the mail I got today? What happened to the letter I had 3 months ago? How come it's gone missing? Where's the page on this or that? It's no longer available. Well, guess what? It's gone into a separate archive. Another book. Liber 1 and Liber 2. Book 1 for the public. Book 2 for the insider. Who's the insider? Well, you think it's the priest or the military general or the businessman or the prime minister. They're just fronts, cosmetics. One with the real power is a clerk, usually with big hips.
I see him. I was seen him this week. And
At bottom ladies make the rocking world go round. Now, Sphinx, think of it. S and X, Alpha and Omega. X is 10, S is a 1. Together they make 11.
Ocean 11.
In the middle is PHI. Phi Beta Kappa.
Oh, yeah.
The top 10%.
Oh,
Phi. But it's phonetics. It doesn't have to be spelled PHI. It can be spelled FIN, as in finish. At the end, who will be in charge? Who will finish? Finland is made up of two groups of people. 4,000 years ago, a group of people called the Golden Hordes arrived in Finland. They had come from the east. 2,000 years ago, another group, Caucasians, came to Finland. The whitest of them all. They came from the west. Today, the Finnish people have the clearest definition in their genome, in their genetic code. Very, very few people have ever wanted to migrate to Finland. They are made up of two groups. Their DNA is about as original as it was at the beginning. If you went to England, you'd find the opposite. Don't know who a person is in England because there's been so many visitors from all over the world there that their DNA is now spread out. And you have to go through a much larger database than you would have to do in Finland. Is it an accident that the second group of white people arrived and they changed the calendar from BC to AD? Is it a coincidence that they wrote an allegory around that time to describe the shelf life of the individual? Died on the cross at 33. Who's Jesus? Pronounce it as if you were Spanish. After all, you came from the Middle East. If you were Spanish, you came from a place called Tyre. You were Phoenician.
Mm-hmm.
3,300 AD. It's 1,100 years from now. Humans die on the cruise. Jesus is pronounced, he's us.
But Glenn, I wanted to ask you, what do you know about have you been looking into like the thing that's all over the news with this guy, Jared Loner?
Jared Lee.
Huh? Jared Lee Loner. They pronounce it Lagner or something like that. But with the whole
every word, Jared, in every language, built with philosopher's stones.
genetic hand inside Lagner. GH. I remember you telling me that.
Brick is a pebble. A cement block is a stone.
Mhm.
Silly balls. Phonetics is the common denominator of all language. So is pictograph. Priests could leave Italy and go to any country in the world. They, in a matter of days, would know what the person was talking about. Not because they spoke their language. That took them years to practice. But because they listened to it in their own language.
Yeah.
Latin.
What's the root language?
La is the.
10, the cover.
10 is 10.
Oh.
The 10 is the common denominator. 10 parts to a perfect slave. Washington. Ton. 2,000 pounds. The year 2000.
Yeah, Glenn. So yeah, I'm not claiming to know everything, Glenn. You know, I'm slowly learning on my own.
If you did.
What happened?
I wouldn't believe you.
Yeah.
Anybody can claim anything.
Yeah.
the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah. And another thing I've been looking at too, Glenn, because I noticed that you were like, since you're like newspaper, like you do like how you'd mail to like government offices and mail these letters. You do everything. It seemed like in a proper sense, like a legal proper sense. And I started looking at do you know anything about contract law? Cause
I'm not a lawyer.
Oh, okay.
I am a non-lawyer.
Okay. Because I was looking at that stuff, and it's really interesting. What it's a whole language that they can use, like just from talking to a cop or whatever. Like you're going into contracts and stuff, but
there is no word that has a single definition.
Yeah.
Every word is designed to mean more than one thing. The purpose of that is interpretation. People in charge always want to reinterpret every word based on their needs. You can go, as I have done on a number of occasions, sit in a courtroom, listen to lawyers address a judge, and you will then hear the judge make a determination as to what he really meant. Therefore, one side or the other wins. Similar facts can be presented the next week to the same judge by the same lawyer. The next week, the judge interprets the decision in the opposite direction so that a different person wins the case. At each time, the judge acts as if it was the first time that he had heard the argument. And over a lifetime, the same judge can hear the same argument 50 times and always act like it's the first time. He's looking for space in order to allow the predetermined winner to win.
Like how do you decide who's going to win? Like,
if he cannot do it, he obviously makes mistakes so that he can pass it on to a court of appeal who, with a higher knowledge of how you interpret words, can make an opposite decision. Many times, it's very important for the court to lose, as far as they're concerned, the system's side, so that everybody then says the system works and they forget about it. While 5 years down the road, the Court of Appeal overturns the decision.
What does that leave someone like me?
No place. No different than anybody else. There's nobody in the world that has an out from the system. You can't go that direction. You can't try to fix something that was designed to be rigged from the beginning. You have to stop going that way and wasting time. You have to change direction completely and look for a totally different approach. and it cannot be based on words.
But that's for me. Like I can say that for me, but
for everybody.
But
think of democracy
mm-hmm.
as a person who is equal to all others because he bought a $5 card. What's to stop an organization of thousands of religious people, thousands of media people, thousands of military people, thousands of politicians, corporations, whatever? What's to stop that group from handing out a $5 card? Say, go to that place, join up, and vote our direction. Democracy doesn't work. It cannot work. It's based on a false premise that the individual has power. Not true. The individual only has the power of one card.
Because you say that you're building up evidence for I forgot the exact words, but you said a court of proper
appropriate jurisdiction.
Appropriate. Now, what does that really mean?
Court of appropriate jurisdiction deals with the final recombination.
Oh, okay.
You cannot make a pig's ear into a silk purse. Therefore, you got to get rid of it. You can't do it by going around killing people. That means you're simply taking the place of God, who goes around killing people all the time. But if you leave it to creation to make sure that everyone who is born and proves throughout their lifetime they carry no redeeming social value, they have no reason to call themselves human beings. They are, in fact, self-styled accumulators who only think about short-term benefits for themselves. Those people cannot be allowed to come back in this or the next universe as human beings. You know what you're going to get from them, and it's not your intent if you're creation. So you melt down their recipe to its individual components. Recombinant DNA. You recombine them. If the penalty is small, you send them back as something useful. Ants would be much more useful than politicians. They're the garbage pickers. But there are some people that you can't even allow a few 100,000 years to go by before they might become human again. So you got to go a step further. The worst condition I can imagine for living eternity is to live it as a slug. The dirt beside the ocean. And that's the penalty requested. the court of appropriate jurisdiction. Only creation can make that decision. Not us.
So all I got to worry about, I have to do my job that I'm here for, right?
There's only one way to get out of the mess we're in. That's to tell creation that with the experience, 13.7 billion years of this universe, 4.5 billion years of this planet, something went wrong. We know that creation wanted us to be free, wanted us to be equipped with a talent that would allow us to do something we consider enjoyable all day long, wanted us to have the food we needed simply by picking it up off the ground or from a tree. But that's not what we got. What happened? What we got is a promise from creation. Ask and you shall receive. And somebody asked to be in charge. And we call that hijacker God. And once he got in charge, he changed the rules. He said, I want to accumulate everything in this city, in this country, on this continent, on this planet, on all the other planets in the solar system, and everything in the Oort cloud, and everything beyond that. The minute he did that, the timing belt slipped. And everything in evolution turned to evolution. What we need to do is ask creation, what can you do about fixing the timing belt?
Well, I think people should know the real story, what really happened, because people are working with the premise that God's laws, as they say, is the absolute truth.
God is everywhere today because God operates by remote control through the human beings that God has modified. And God has come to the conclusion that they're not good enough. And they need to be replaced with a better copy. And knowing that the original one was a hermaphrodite, it's decided that that's the way to go. However, not to leave the decision-making power to the slave, that it will be a 10-element assembly so that it can, in fact, be remotely controlled from the mainframe computers that are located in the upper mantle, below the floor of the ocean is the Moho discontinuity. Following that is the upper mantle. Then what protects you from the water, from the heat, is the lower mantle. Computers operate the upper mantle.
Do you think these computers still get serviced by Cro-Magnon underground?
No. These are self-taught computers. They receive the basic programming at the beginning, but over time learn the lessons to fix themselves. See it every day with the technology on computers in your own home.
Yeah.
That you are told on the screen what to do.
They tell you what to do now. Computer tells you what to do instead of you telling.
So there we are. Who's got the time?
So what do you think the role is of...
quarter after 3.
I beg your pardon?
Quarter after 3.
Quarter after 3. I have to be out of here by 3:30. There are some animals that have not had water yet. It froze last night again. And this is the age of Aquarius, and I'm the water bearer.
Oh, I want to ask a question about... somebody mentioned to me yesterday, they were talking about... in the Zodiac, they call it the 13th sign. Unlike it was the Zodiac.
I heard that yesterday.
Oh, did you?
I have no knowledge of what they mean by it, so I'll have to defer until I find out.
Yeah. It was saying something about, they call that 13th sign the serpent bearer, something like that. I can't email you anything because you can't receive it.
3 pyramids and a sphinx is 13. 1331, the priest of masonry who does remote control. I don't know, George. I just running through stuff that's running through my mind on it. But I have to observe, analyze, and conclude.
Yeah.
And there's no schedule on that. I can't tell you tomorrow or the next day because it may require more search than done in that time. The only advantage I have over you guys by living on this planet, mind you, that I've lived longer and I don't accept anybody's definition of anything just because they say it. And I'm telling you that about the things I'm telling you. Just because I believe what I say doesn't mean you should, without first observing, analyzing, and concluding.
Yep. True. Very true.
The experiences that you have to live with and through during your lifetime that will confirm what I say or confirm what the system says. I have no fears that anyone with a functioning brain can see the evidence all around. God even told us at the end times, signs would be all around. They are. They are. Take my word for it. Go outside, have a look. Double check it, triple check it. The signs are all around.
Yeah.
We know that it doesn't happen overnight, that there's a phased-in approach to things, and the final phase is 1,000 years from now. So 33 means 3,000 3,300. We are phase 1, Northern Hemisphere, 2,162, rounded off, 2,062, rounded off, and 2,100, 2 and 1. Next one is 1,000 years later. The cleanup afterwards, 3,300, is not impossible as being the final day. Not the end of the planet, end of the people who live on the planet. And we can't reverse what has been done, but I believe that creation would be open to extending the lifespan of people on the planet another 5,000 years. I say that because Alder Amin, the second son, is not due until the year 7,000 or thereabouts. So let's use the 5,000 years to figure out how the hell to get out of here. We are, in fact, in a container. We live in a 4-dimensional egg shape. If we have the information on the gateway out, that was a reverse of the gateway in, that would be a 5th dimension. The place we would end up being in would be the 6th dimension. It's where the alterations occur, number 7. And the building of new universes, number 8. We can get to the 6th dimension if we can remember with creation and we stop being energy and become matter again. White matter. If we are part of creation, it's because we brought to creation lessons that needed to be incorporated. Creation knows everything, but has no senses. It's not a human being. We, on the other hand, have the feelings that go along with the things we learn. And if we don't depend solely on our medulla that's been tampered with, feelings that we have are based upon good and evil. If we've chosen good, we can bring to creation the feelings of feeling good to be incorporated into the next universe. So that we don't have to go through same trial and error stupidity, handing over power, hijacker, name corresponds to dog. That
hey Glenn, with these if the computer's running everything on Neanderthals' behalf, and they're not as many, it seems, as they were, in the beginning. And there seems to be only a few left of them. Like, where are they at in all of this? Are so they're like ignorant in their own.
As far as I recall, there would be approximately 144,000 equal to Neanderthals, each one having brought to the central computer a portion of genius. And as far as I know, they're still there. Whether they are involved or not, I can't tell you. So now that the computers have got enough information in them to run on their own, they may be sitting around a bar just looking up at us, wondering how well we'll make out. But they have defined two groups of people starting in 40,000 BC. They made Cro-Magnon in their image. Starting in approximately 8,000 BC, 10,000 years ago, they made Roma. Roma was to be divided to groups of wanderers who would wander across the earth. Name given to them by some is gypsy. Others call them aboriginals. They are the bottom up. Cro-Magnon worked the top down. Neither of them are on our side. And I tell you that from a position that I consider I was Cro-Magnon. The original people were the hermaphroditic clan mothers of Africa and the original Neanderthals, whom I suggest came from a place probably what you would call Czechoslovakia today. They hand out the checks. They settled eventually in a place in the Middle East which they call Tyre. It's a play on roll. Let's roll. Lebanon seems to be that place. Paris of the Middle East. Continually battered between peace and war. Learning the lessons, how to impose conflict. Jordan seems to be a place from which control by India directed. India used to own the land we now call Pakistan. It's an egg within an egg, within an egg, within an egg, within an egg, in all phases of the story. The original Trojan horse. A hermaphrodite made up of 10 elements will be a Trojan horse. that looks like woman, built like man on the inside, but is ruled by the nickel-colored mineral that always covers copper. Fence is always policemen called cops or copper, because they are remade over and over and over again as policemen.
Well, it's not these policemen that you want to really make
they are not doing the job that the media tells you they're doing. Only recently has the media been finger-pointing police all over the world. Time is now for a management change in almost every phase of everything you hear on radio and TV. Management change seems to be, at this time, to go from human beings of two genders, women are of combined genders, unified. But they're not done yet. They have to put all the pieces together, and that will take 10 years. By 2020, you'll know the difference. It won't be as subtle as Hillary is to Laura Bush. It will be much clearer who's in charge.
Yeah, and it's going to be so obvious. And do you think anybody will even react?
I am not interested in who else but me reacts. I leave that to them. I react.
I'm reacting now.
And I've been reacting since I was 57 years of age.
Oh, Heinz ketchup?
Yeah. Made of many elements. Gotta go now.
All right, good.
Talk to you. You guys keep it up.
All right.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
Who's there still?
I'm here.
I'm here.
Is Brandon there? He said he was on the call, but he's not. Guess not. So yeah, what's up, guys? So what? You know who called me the other day? A guy iconoclast. I was sleeping and I just woke up and picked up the phone, and he's like, Glen Kealey admits he's working with intelligence agencies. What do you have to say to this? And I'm like, what? He probably has it on his channel. You probably hear it. I don't know. And I'm like, what? Huh?
He's a waste of time.
Yeah, and then it was this, and then he goes, what do you have to say about Arizona Wilder? I'm like, oh man. And then I was just like, you know what, man, I can't speak for other people, man. What type of shit is that? To call somebody up to ask about somebody else, like as if I'm that person. But whatever.
That's what those kind of people do, you know.
Word. Yeah. So Nia, what you been looking into?
What?
What have you been looking into, man?
Rereading encyclopedias, looking at older text, looking to European text, manually translating French books right now, things like that.
With the French, I see is interesting. You'll see. I think the best way to learn it is to be around people. Well, is when you go inside an encyclopedia or dictionary, and you see what it says for French or whatever. But like, you gotta know how it sounds like, and the only way you can really know that is if you have an idea, like you can speak the language, and that's you gotta hear it. I mean, that's the benefit. Like those priests who had the phonetic, because they would hear those sounds, and you could hear those sounds, and you break those sounds that you hear into the syllables, and it's more words, and it's
Yeah.
it's it's not like a textbook thing really. French.
It's a mixture of both, I guess, right?
What happened?
It could be, it could be a mixture of both. But,
Yeah.
Do as much legwork on your own, but then it's always best to get in. If you have even, I don't know, if you call it like some friends or a section of town where they speak the language, and you can get in and try to get in some conversations or ask questions. Like that's kind of maybe the best way. Trying to get into a language, but.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I've been studying, just reading up on like native people, and I'm just interested in like their language, the symbols, the culture, and you see a lot of them. Like I mean, the ones from the Caribbean, they call them Taino. They were in Florida, also in South America. They had different like brands of them, but these guys like were in Haiti. They had like this thing where they had these men. It was like a paternal society they called it, and it was men who were like the leaders. They had the highest, stature. They it was just they had like many wives, and for a woman to be with that man would be like such an honor, and they get so much material success from being with that person. Follow that I guess that patriarch type of thing. Yeah.
What are some books you've been reading?
Me? Right now I'm reading Lewis and Clark. It's called Lewis and Clark, First Across the Continent. And that book is interesting, man. That book goes into like, the tribes and what they saw, and they even admit that they use symbols and stuff. And you start seeing, and you see that the Native Americans, it's like a completely like symbolic type of people. Everything they do is basically like a setup. So for anybody who would come, like Lewis and Clark did, they would just be able to recognize like their belief systems. Or like one belief system, I made a post on it. Like they, in their creation myth, someone with a beaver, and they were taught like beavers don't ever harm beaver, and I realized that that's what Lewis and Clark were. They were kind of like beavers. They kind of like build dams that'll be destroyed like New Orleans, and that was like the clue for me. Like, and there was so many other things like certain rocks that they, areas that they held sacred, and these were just like symbols or messages for Lewis. And that lady Sacagawea was like one who understood the symbols. she acted like she was a guide or whatever. There's a whole bunch of things.
Yeah. They're pretty much just Masonic religions, just under different names.
Yeah.
Because they have the same or similar allegories. You can see patterns and trends. Just go under different names. So, if you read like the official history of Masonry, they said they became public around the early 18th century. But that's only what's the word? It's like that's only the official name. But if you go back, you can find like the Noachites that existed thousands of years before. Yeah. So it just shows evidence or circumstantial evidence that they've existed longer than they tell people. Yeah, when you see Lewis and Clark, they come and they show signs and symbols to these guys. It's telling you that Freemasonry is older than that. Yeah, there's another Freemason who wrote books on ancient symbols. His last name is Churchward. Yeah, he wrote about the ancient land of Mu. I think that's what the title was. He calls it Lemuria, but you have to look at all the symbols because he goes into all the ancient tribes and things like that, and he shows you all the allegories. Something to look into. Yeah, right here it says. I actually wrote this down. It goes from east to west and from north to south, over the whole habitable globe are our lodges disseminated. Wherever the wandering steps of civilized men have their footprints, there have our temples been established. The lessons of Masonic love or lava have penetrated into the wilderness of the West, and the red man of our soil has shared with his more enlightened brother the mysteries of our science. While the arid sands of the African desert have more than once been the scene of a Masonic greeting, Masonry is not a fountain giving health and beauty to some single hamlet and hello? Whoa, I can't even understand what I wrote here. Encyclopedia? Yeah, encyclopedia. I remember something like that. Was it for temple? What? I think that's for temple, right? The article for temple? No, it's on the universality of Mason. Okay. Yeah, it's basically saying, but there was another article in that Masonic Encyclopedia I remember reading. They talked about like hand signs, and they were saying like these hand signs are so old, like were people like waving and peace and all these things are Masonic. That's what they would do, like when they came off the ships and stuff. They would just show these signs, and they knew, people knew. Yeah. And all of these, I call them like different orders, like merchants, traders. They were like a brand of. They were all secret societies, and they all had that language. That's where you get like I was talking earlier, like that contract law. And I know I've heard so many people talk about this stuff. They talk, how the people, they call them sovereigns, sovereignty. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of interesting insights in that stuff. I've been listening to some of that stuff with contract law, like complete like Masonic language, man. Like they have. It's like it's in a way like you talk to somebody and you're making a contract and not even realizing it. And all these things, it's their little game that they play. Yeah. And like there's, the guy that I was listening to, his solution is like, oh, just play their game with them. But like, me personally, I don't see it as a solution, as just joining in on the game. I could see it give you insight, on what's going on, but like, yeah, I don't think joining in is gonna help. I mean, it's just good to know, so you know
how not to get taken advantage of, or certain time and situations. If you just know what to say, it gets you out of like that, night in jail or something.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, because there's things that they do that they use. Like, if I would have known this is impossible at 16, I would have never got arrested at 16. At 16, you should have seen, like, just from the officer calling me to come in, and I came in like a dummy to the precinct. Called my house. He had no jurisdiction, no. And I came in just because I'm scared, and he arrested me for no reason. He had just for me coming in and talking to him, he was able to like arrest me.
Yeah,
and he had nothing. Huh?
You agreed to their call. You answered their call.
So, for my life, I see. I could totally see what they're talking about. Like, they do play this game, and it's not that the cop knows so much of contract law. He probably knows, to a certain extent, but like they know personalities, they know people, because they deal with people all the time, and they know who they can pull this with and who they can't pull this with. They know the minute they talk to you, they know what type of person, what they can push you. They're like bullies,
salesmen. Man. They're like salesmen with guns.
Yeah, they're bullies, man. A bully knows who he can't. It's the same mentality like in jail. Like they know they test you, and that's what they do. It's like these little rousing. Like they
everything is based on that. Our whole
put you under pressure.
Whole system's based on that.
Yeah.
Like if you're negotiating with someone in big business, they're gonna they're always like playing low. You always want to shoot low. You don't want to pay the most right away. You always kind of like setting yourself up and giving yourself wiggle room. It's the same thing. Like it's always deceiving someone else to see how much you can get or how much you don't lose. That's the whole in everything.
And that's how they turn on their own. I think their own people, like the natives, because the natives were playing this game with them, but I don't think they fully understood.
And maybe not all the natives.
Not all the natives. Yeah.
The chiefs, the heads of there were.
Yeah, because the chiefs always seemed to get away. Like they always seemed to be the ones that, because they were just they were siding whoever had the power. Like they're like, okay, these guys got the power.
They listen to their chief, so that's the elder or whatever.
Yeah.
So
these people did not know anything about like this law, this type of, because these guys were using contract like ownership and all these contract things. Yeah. They were using all that shit, man, and they didn't even. They had like they were just like, yo, they were living like more, with nature, and these guys come along and say, and in their mind, I guess the people that were using all this stuff they were like justified, like to do this in a way, like, well, they don't know, so that's not my fault, like. Crazy. But
everything's based on that.
And what is law based on? Money. Those who make the laws. So.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Did you know there was a flood in Queensland?
Yeah. In Australia.
Yeah. It hit about like on the 9th, and it peaked around the 11th.
Yeah.
So it's going around that numerical system.
9/11, yeah.
It was 1-1-1.
I think one occurred in 1991, around the same date, January 9 and January 11, 1991.
Another thing with another correlation with 9/11, one of the people that the shooters killed, the little girl, she had interesting, like she had 3 names. And she was born on 9/11, they say.
Yeah.
And that was interesting. Glenn kind of gave a clue. He said, the Philosopher's Stone. And when Tucson is SC. That's like a Philosopher's Stone right there that I see a lot. It's like PH. And if you look at it in numerology, it's 13. 13.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what he was saying about 13. Sphinx, So that was interesting. look at that shooter's name is Loner, man. Like, it's like a joke. I guess, he's a loner.
Just a loner. He's on loan to us.
Yeah, and that Philosopher's Stone, it's the same thing that you see in Baghdad. It's GH. They're saying he's a genetic hen. Now, what does a hen do, right? What does a hen do? It lays eggs, right? So how can he be a hen, though? I'm still trying to figure out. How can he be a genetic hen since he's a male? Wouldn't that be like a nun or something like that? I don't know. But then again, yeah, I don't know. Maybe his mother or something. I don't know. Anybody there?
I'm here, listening.
So yeah. You spoken to that kid on the Facebook? What's his name? Aramis.
Asking me?
Yeah.
Messaged him before, yeah.
Haven't heard from him in a while. I think I kind of maybe, I don't know, offended him or something.
A lot of people post on your page for, like, love, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that.
The drunk, man. A lot of people. Oh man, like that guy. He's on as Adam Eve. Like a lot of his friends. That's how like I know those people from his friends, and a lot of them like about that, man. It's just this love. It's the love religion. Insane, man. Like they're all about love and light. Love, light, meditation, really, and it's really seeing all that really made me want to go into like what Madame Blavatsky, like, because she's like the key to all of that. Like, she was the one that kind of set, because without her, Buddhism would never really kind of be here in the West. Like, she seemed to be that cornerstone, I guess you could call it, because she was like, it was like a primer. Because the Western mind totally like rejects Buddhism, it seems, but something kind of made it more acceptable in the West, and that was, I think, her New Age theosophy and like that. Like I see that they have people, theosophical societies. And then they have. You ever heard of transcendentalism?
Yeah.
And I never really looked into it too much, but it seems like it's in that same. Like, do you know what that's all about?
Yeah, it's about raising into different levels of awareness and consciousness by meditation, things like that.
Oh man.
It's like a philosophy of thought, like brainwashing, pretty much.
There must be a grain of truth in there, and I know it's in every philosophy or whatever school. There's always like some truth you could use.
Yeah, they hook people in with reason and then they twist it.
You know who's a big promoter of reason? Somebody, actually, a guy I talked to, Mason. He told me about a lady named Ayn Rand. You ever heard of her?
Yeah.
And she's like she's like reason should be absolute. And it's interesting when you look at her name. Ayn is the, I guess, German stone. And by hearing her accent, she seems like she's from that area in Europe. And like that area is where all like Nietzsche and that type of and nihilism, like it all seems to, like they always seem, they come at it from like that type of angle. I know it's that type of thought. And I mean, there's grains of truth in all of what they say, but seem to go another extreme.
It lacks intuition. It's just pure reason.
Yeah.
And they lack a premise.
Yeah. And you know what? That pure reason, that's nothing new, because that was used in, like, I think, like, Grecian times. They had schools of thought that was just pure reason.
Yeah.
And
the Greeks,
hmm?
whatever the Greeks got, it was from the Egyptians.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Greeks knew about the Buddhists too. They went to parts of India. Some of them I read about, and they honored these people, the Buddhists.
Hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of connections. You have to look at it yourself and you see it.
Yeah. That's what I do. When I look at it, I see connections. It's like what Glenn said, but they're not controversial. They mention them, but nobody says anything really to make you really look at them. But when you look at them, it's like, oh wow.
Yeah, because they don't lack the big picture, that premise, or they don't have any context. They just take it at face value without questioning it. It's part of the scientific mind that people have. If you ask the common graduate student something, or if you tell them something, they'll ask you for scientific evidence. And if you don't have everything laid down in a logical format with your premises and a conclusion, they won't believe it. They'll say, it's not sound or something, or it's not valid, your reasoning. That's how they go about it.
But all that stems from, and I put that on Facebook. There's a guy called who goes under the title 3-Minute Philosophy. Australian guy, and he goes into Thomas Aquinas, John Locke, all these guys. It was interesting. These were all these, like, Aristotle was one, but there were guys before Aristotle, and you got to see like how they play with human thought. Like one guy will say something, and they'll usually have a guy who says something the opposite. Like one guy, Rene, how you say Rene Descartes? Descartes, yeah. He tells he goes, if I can, I think, therefore I am, I exist. But there was another one that was saying you don't exist. And but they each had something that was really true. But they were, Aristotle, his trick, he had people all messed up, off of faulty premise, for thousands of years, until another guy came along and said, hey, no, this isn't right. Galileo, I think it was.
A lot of these people that you're mentioning, if you look at their official background, they won't mention that they were part of secret society.
Yeah.
If you look at encyclopedias, they mention it, this guy was a Rosicrucian, this guy was in mysteries. It's real funny.
Yeah, Pythagoras too was another one. This guy was in every single cult around the world. He was part of every mystery school. And they said this guy was mentioning, he's like, yeah, Pythagoras is a cult-like thing. He worshipped math, and he had everybody under him swear an oath to secrecy. And he claims, this guy, he says that the reason why he did that because he had the little Pythagoreans who would come up with different theories and formulas. But what he would do, he would take all the credit for it. But they were so under secrecy, so they could never say anything, and he would just take all the credit for it. I thought that was kind of.
It's always interesting how they promote secrecy, and then they say that these mysteries shouldn't be revealed to the profane. They never really justify why. They just say because they just can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
Funny. I think it's just their training. That's how the system functions. They're just training them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. When you read the Masonic Encyclopedia, and you'll see that they always seem to they come at it they're the victims, and you'll see many times in history that they were banned or outlawed. Masonry, they say somebody always banned them, outlawed them. It wasn't allowed, and you'll ask like why? Because I know people in history they just probably was sick and tired of this shit, seeing what they were doing or whatever, or I don't know, maybe there was something else behind it.
Maybe they want to make them look like martyrs or something.
Yeah,
good people,
maybe.
the victims.
Yeah. But there were times they were killed, because they were just found out. But then I guess they killed their own first, so maybe.
Yeah, they don't mind killing their own, especially if they're lower degrees, like willing servants.
Yeah, man, like it's just no. I mean, they talk about love and all this shit. I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem. It seems like you're in more danger if you work for.
Yeah, because they have better info on you, keeping an eye on you.
Yeah, man. So I see that, like, guys who join, like, FBI, CIA. These guys, they join these people, and, like, it's like you gotta keep, if you're working for them, you gotta keep some type of leverage so they don't get rid of you. And even when you join them and you're retired, supposedly, you're getting watched the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That sucks, man. What type of? Well, I guess a lot of these guys, like, cause now I don't think like these CIA people. They're not people who just join some guy off the street. I think it's like these guys are like kind of bred. Their families, they just bred for that position.
A lot are bred, and then they have positions where they'll recruit strangers, but they put them in lower positions, usually bodyguards, things like that. Like, you can go apply for the Secret Service, and then you go risk your life,
Yeah, they actually were, when I used to go to school, college, I remember the Secret Service was like, during the job fair, they were there. That's how they get them, man, through job fairs and even the sheriffs.
Or military guys.
Yeah,
you already had certain training, so that's what they're looking for, Marines and stuff like that. Like, you want to go to the next level, you want to be on, this or that. Yeah. Or there's tons that don't want to necessarily get out there and fight, but they'll go and,
It's funny how you guys are on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast, and it's the same exact thing. Nothing different.
Yeah, you should picture how it is in the Midwest, man. It's all military. When I look at the Midwest place, that's in Virginia is where they're all stationed. They're in Missouri. I know people
Texas.
in military. Texas is a big one, yeah. It's all military.
We have one upstate too.
Yeah.
There's forts everywhere.
They got one over here.
I got one by me, actually.
I look at it like I look at it as an opportunity to learn, like, because I know some people in the military, so I just ask questions and I find out a lot of things from those people. Like, they tell me the things that they see, whatever, and they all do it for money usually. That's why they do it. Or some people do it for camaraderie, be part of the whole team. And
people do it because they don't have anything else. Like, as far as, it's either get a job or join the military at 18 if you're not going to college or something like that. So people...
Yeah, because like the culture kind of has a solely based, and then these people, young guys, they feel like they have no order in their lives, and these people bring order to it.
Yeah. And cash.
What?
And cash.
And cash. Oh, yeah.
And cash.
Yeah.
That's what they're after.
Bonuses and this and that.
And they like the power, too, if you go to, like, a third world country and just dominate everyone else.
Yeah.
They're always taking pictures with, like, ammunition and freaking Gatling guns and, rail guns, whatever.
Yeah. But a lot of
if you actually look at their job,
genetic thing, man. Some people's genetic, like their father was in it. They do it. Like, it's just like it's part of their genetic coding.
Like if their father or grandfather, it just makes it easier for them to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh well, Dad was in it, Grandpa was, it's something we
Yeah,
do.
you know, them growing up with Grandpa, he's gonna tell you nothing but good things about it growing up.
Yep. Maybe. I mean, less. You know, some of them.
Not all.
My grandpa didn't tell me any nice things about the war. So, you know.
They're like, oh, it'll make you a man. They teach you that. And they have this in every country, I think, man. Like in some countries, like, and the whole thing with the contract law, like I remember when I was 18, like they mailed shit to my house saying like you have to join the army, like what? Why do I have to join the army? Or you go to jail. Like it's
and join that army.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Well,
man.
Even like when you register to vote, you basically put in, so there's a draft. They can call
Yeah. You're signing all these contracts, man. And you're not even realizing, man. Like, you know, that's crazy, man. I see that now. I see deception, by deception.
Yeah.
That's why I'm just like, man, you know, I don't even want to be part of their system, man. I just want to kind of like, even though you can never fully disconnect from their system, but like, try to live as much as you can, I guess, out of the system. But that's a hard thing.
As far as like knowing the contract stuff, like the law and the wording, I mean, that stuff is good to know just so you can like avoid having to pay money or stuff like that. No, I'm not saying like your taxes or anything, but if you're getting
even taxes, man, taxes is when you realize what it is, it's not something that. I mean, Glenn does it all the time. He mails to them. He goes, why? You know,
no,
you fill it out.
You fill it out. Yeah. You fill it out. He leaves it all blank and signs the bottom.
Yeah. So, like, I think he knows, because he's been, like, going to court for, like, years and shit. He's going
helping the natives and stuff.
Yeah, he's been doing all that stuff and looking how, like, he said he sees how judges do this. So, like, that's how you learn about contract law. That's what the guy was saying. Like, he goes, you read all this stuff and that's good, but, like, that experience is more valuable than anything else. Actually going through the courtrooms and seeing that, because you know what to say, you know what to, So I thought because there's a lot of things, man. There's a lot of things I need to know about, about all that stuff. But.
Hey, you know when Glenn mentions more dimensions, is he referring to another dimension of time, like a fifth dimension?
No, not
time.
Time. He just I guess he didn't explain like what fifth and sixth are, and I've heard it being explained by. Maybe you would be good at that, at looking at the geometry, right? Because geometry seems to be like a symbolic representation of all that stuff. They do talk when you look at the shapes and stuff. Or they show you.
Well, kind of like he was just saying, like fourth dimension is more like time.
Yeah.
So as far as leaving this, or like a way of what they're trying to figure out is like the way of traveling through like basically galaxies instead of just going propelled by for thousands or millions of years to get to the next place. It has to be a quicker way, and it might be with sound. That's what the whole thing with looking at with that movie, Close Encounters of a Third Kind, when they had that part when they were talking with the other that sound, whatever that sound is like where that's what's in Gregorian chant, that same those tonal frequencies, that's like a gateway kind of with sound. So
So there was
kind
a
of what he's getting at.
Named Jacob Boehme. That's the name, Boehme, and he talked about the sounding returning. It was I forgot what exactly. Actually, I think I wrote it down. It talks about the sound and how it returns into it's like these guys, the Gregorian people, they you know, it's interesting that word Gregorian, Gregory. That name is also the name of the Watchers or the Nephilim. They call them. There's another name for them. That's another link.
Gregorian calendar.
I think I found. He goes. He goes. So when the person enters, no, what is it? You enter into the silence which came before the sounding, as Bomi called it, and that sounding which must finally return again into sleep. It's like when you play a sound, like you see it, it's like it rings, you hear it, it's like it has its peak, and then it comes back down to it's like when you hear the bell, right? It comes to a peak, and then it comes to like a close. That's the same concept of the seed and everything, and coming back. And
it's also like when you hear a train coming, you hear the faint whistle, and then it comes past you, and then it leaves. But it's the same volume the whole entire time.
Yeah.
But it's coming towards you past, and then so it changes. So.
That's something that we really. There's a guy named I think his name was John Randall, who wrote on the theory of sound. Maybe that's something you could get into, Mike. Because I've been wanting to get into this stuff, the sound. Because then you look at Zen, they're all about like what they call intensity. That's like one of the doctrines, and that's what sound is. It's like it's partly an intensity. And if you look up time, right? I was looking up time, the definition I wrote down. The definition of time is I think the sounds. Definition of time is the measure of sounds. One of the definitions is the measure of sounds or tone. And tone is like, because that's what all music is all music is based on pitch, intensity, tone, I think quality.
Duration.
Duration. And you ever watch that movie Riddick? The Riddick Chronicles, Vin Diesel. You ever heard of it? Yeah. Well, there's a movie where they talk about the necromancer. There's a part, and it's like when they're on the ship, and they're communicating through like this vibration in water. It was like insane. I was thinking, I was like, wow, they're hinting at like something, man. Can you imagine that? Like they were like talking through these things like phones. I don't know. It just kind of gave me a clue of like what type of technology they have. They have, because sound travels through. When you look at it, said sound can only travel. It can travel through matter, through water. They said it could sound, and I forgot what else.
Gravity affects it too.
Yeah. So like, I think sound is like really important, man, and these priests know it. I mean, that's why they've been messing around with sound. Like whenever like you hear like inside like Zen or any priest, like they all play music, and they for a certain type of tone or trance. They all know about this. Like I bet Egyptians were probably doing it too. And all temples, I think they like played certain sounds. In Greece they played the harp. Hello.
Yeah.
In Greece they played the harp. And the harp is
But usually to induce trance it has to be like repetitive notes. That repetition is what puts you into the trance.
I mean, they got actually a genre of electronic music called trance, techno.
Yeah.
And I notice a lot of that stuff is linked to like Buddhist stuff. Cause the names of the artists, they'll be like Buddhist type of thing, and it's some Buddhist buzzword, Eastern buzzword. Like I noticed that it's like kind of big in that type of music. I remember Prodigy. There's a song by the group Prodigy. I don't know if anybody ever heard of them, but
yeah,
they're pretty big. And they have a song called Narayana. You should listen to that shit, man. And in that song, they use like halfway through, they use like a chant that's like a Buddhist chant. And they keep going, and when people do these things, I've met like women who like to do that stuff. Like they say, Actually, I know somebody on Facebook who likes to do that stuff. And when you do that, I think you're like clearing your mind, and you're like making your mind easily programmable. Like it's a technique that they make you do on yourself, so they can program you. It's like when they, when we go to in a Catholic church, I've seen it myself, and they go, they always have to have these songs and these hymns.
I think it's based on like that deep throaty sound. Because those higher notes will make you kind of focuses you more because it's like a higher note, so you're paying more attention to it. But that is more like a steady, like melodic kind of movement,
I remember Alan Watts said that too. He goes, it's all part of the brainwash. Like when you sit there and you go and you kneel in the aisle, all these things, like these physical things, like
the cue.
Yeah, it's all like it's doing something to you.
All right, guys, I gotta go. I'll talk to you next time.
All right.
Bye.
All right. So yeah, all those things, man. How long have you been on for? 2?
2.
Oh wow, 2 hours, 2.5. Oh, that's not bad.
Nope.
It's not like 9 hours.
Yeah, I guess get into here.
Yeah.
Is there any other points you want to make?
Can't think of any right now unless you want to bring something up.
You can and and too much.
Oh yeah, all that shit's just like, and is actually 3 in 1. It's partly will there will. It's the 3 in 1 deity.
Yeah, that was interesting. Concept to how the Earth's listening and also the speaker too. It's
receiving, giving, and
listening and receiving. Yeah. I knew that, but it made more sense today.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's things that like make more sense to when it's said in another way.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll get off.
All right.
Unless you want to say anything else.
Well, save it for next time.
All right. Yeah. I guess.
Okay. Till next time.
Yep. All right. Bye.
Bye.